Do you get hyper excited knowing a new Star Wars or Marvel Comics film is due out? Do you spend valuable hours of your life playing computer games? If you do, then this is definitely something you should watch.
Oh, we got the Animal Crossing Switch.
You got it. Double up, double up!
Holy Toledo, that is awesome.
Technology, whilst incredibly useful, is turning us into lazy muppets. You'll have heard it said prior generations were much tougher than ours. This is axiomatic. They just were. Past generations had harder lives, and without today's technology to hold their hands and wipe their asses, they had to gather food, create shelters, and ward off predators. I've just got back from traversing the boggy, windswept moors, and with everything in my burden to survive, I navigated using a compass and made my own shelter for the night. On my way there, I noticed everybody else were using cell phones and apps to get them where they wanted to be. They'd be literally lost without that technology. My great-grandfather, at the grand old age of 21, signed up to fight a world war for 4 years. 2 months before the war's end, he had his lower left leg blown off by shrapnel whilst on horseback. He never talked about it. My granddad joined the British Army in '39 to fight 6 years in World War II. He never talked about it. My father worked 12-hour shifts in a steelworks every day to provide for his family, with his only outside outlet for happiness being the football at the weekend. He was the toughest man I've ever known, both physically and mentally. He never cried, never lost it, and was the backbone of the entire family. I'm not saying we need a war for young men to find maturity, but they certainly need a strong purpose in life. Over the last few years, we've seen this barrage from certain quarters telling young men that masculinity is somehow toxic. It isn't. A strong man is a danger to the government, and a strong man is also attractive to the opposite sex, or whomever floats your boat. The infantilization of men is being pushed at you by the sponsored news channels and those who create the media.
This game is coming out on the App Store tonight.
I can only imagine what my grandparents must have thought of grown men queuing to see the latest Disney film or playing kids' games. I also have to take slight umbrage with men crying. I might receive some flack for this, but what the hell? It seems to be a thing now, seeing grown men bleating online and saying their journey has been tough. You're not a child who is dying from malnutrition. You've not been forced into slavery while seeing your parents lynched. With today's celebrities, you've probably been caught shoving some Charlie up your nose and your agents told you to play the sympathy card. Grow up. Perhaps H.G. Wells perfectly hit the nail on the head in his book The Time Machine. He envisaged the Morlocks and the Eloi, one an underground most savage race who survived by creation, and the other an apathetic race of imbeciles who were born into being fed while spending their days doing nothing. Sure, they were nothing more than fattened cows, but there has to be some trade-off. I'm surprised they could be bothered to have sex. On a positive note, it does seem that men are looking for masculine role models, and although I wouldn't put too much faith in people such as Andrew Tate or even Jordan Peterson, good job he does, the fact that youngsters are at least looking for advice is promising. They fill a void for men searching for meaning in a world where traditional roles have eroded. Love them or loathe them, their popularity speaks volumes about the modern man's quest for identity. Personally, I always think these current media personalities are false prophets. One has to develop one's own moral compass, often through hardship and life experience. No one ever learnt a thing through being happy. Those once stalwart providers of the world, The builders of nations, explorers of uncharted territories, and defenders of civilization are now more likely to be found arguing whether Batman could defeat Superman. A spirited debate, no doubt, but perhaps not the most pressing concern of a species facing war, economic uncertainty, and the occasional pandemic. Thank you, Fauci. We begin with technology, once the ultimate enabler of masculine prowess. Remember when tools were used to build empires? Now, technology is far more likely to build virtual farms or facilitate 12-hour gaming binges. Instead of wielding a hammer, most men are now adept at wielding a PlayStation controller. Sure, there's dexterity involved, but it's hardly forging swords for battle. Perhaps men growing up in a desolate, harsh environment simply had to mature more quickly.
Being a Satanist means rebelling against them because they're wrong. And as long as you draw a breath, every breath you take is a rebellion.
So buckle up. Hope you frickin' Republicans are happy.
Convenience is a culprit here. Why develop survival skills when an app can deliver dinner in 30 minutes? As I said earlier, even the noble art of map reading has been replaced by GPS, an unflappable voice guiding you to the nearest pub without the need to consult the stars or argue with the missus. In short, technology hasn't just made life easier, it's removed the challenge that once defined manhood. Then there's the media, the eternal puppeteer of societal norms. Where once films celebrated men of grit and determination, think Michael Caine in Zulu, or Peter Toole in Lawrence of Arabia. Today's male idols wear capes and spandex. The comic book hero, once confined to the pages of children's entertainment, now dominates the box office and the adult psyche. Superman and Captain America have replaced Hemingway and Shackleton. Can we blame men for looking up to Iron Man when the real-world role models have been edged out? My on-screen musical heroes, for want of a better word, were mostly working-class hardmen who drank to forget and shagged without hesitation. Even football matches were like civil wars, with teams fielding hardmen such as Norman Hunter or Tommy Smith. Even TV comics such as Spike Milligan or Tommy Cooper have fought in World War II. But it's not just the heroes. Consider the surge of animated films marketed as family-friendly but with adult humour. Pixar and DreamWorks have turned out decent work, but let's not pretend grown men were queuing up for Bambi. Today they'll camp overnight for tickets to see Toy Story. It's not that these films are bad, far from it, but one does wonder if the appetite for them reflects societal regression. When I was a young teen, I'd already forsaken kids' stuff for a guitar and the quest to meet fit girls. And while I think on, what's this thing with trying to morph a decent coffee into a creamy chocolate, milky, frothy caramel smoothie, or alcohol into a fizzy blue-coloured sugared drink served in a pop bottle? Coffee, milk, one sugar, and whiskey straight. And then there's the rise of social media, where the line between adolescence and adulthood becomes particularly blurry. Emojis, once a charming way for teenagers to pepper their texts with meaning, are now used by grown men to convey everything from anger to affection. Once upon a time, men wrote letters with actual words, perhaps even with a Shakespearean flourish. Now they slap a fire emoji onto a tweet and call it poetic. I have never used so-called text speech with LOL or something, nor used emojis. If you're conversing with a woman, call her, say what you need to say, and hang up. Needless back and forth texting is okay for 13-year-olds, but you're 30. Put the phone down and clean the house. I'm also very suspect of men who use the make my profile look like a cartoon character.
I'm getting the word No.
TikTok, of course, deserves its own mention. A platform that encourages men to lip-sync pop songs, perform choreographed dances, or engage in bizarre food challenges. This is the pinnacle, or perhaps a nadir of arrested development. Instead of showcasing wisdom or experience, these antics reduce men to court jesters, desperate for a fleeting validation or a like. If you live by notifications, they've got you by the balls, if you've got any. It's also worth noting that the concept of the teenager itself is relatively modern. Coined in the mid-20th century, the term emerged alongside the rise of youth culture. Before that, young men were simply young adults, expected to shoulder responsibilities, marry early, and contribute to society. The teenager was an invention of post-war affluence, a product of marketing. It's ironic then that a term meant to capture a fleeting stage in life has now extended to middle age. But what's the cost of this prolonged immaturity? For one, it creates a generation of men unprepared for real-world challenges. Relationships suffer as partners tire of men who prioritize gaming over parenting. Careers stagnate when ambition gives way to complacency. Worst of all, society loses out on the full potential of half its population. A man-child may be entertaining, but is hardly the backbone of civilization. And yet, all is not doom and gloom. Masculinity, when channeled correctly, remains a force for good. It's masculine ambition that built bridges and cities, explored unknown continents, and yes, invented the very technology that now distracts us. As the humanity looks to the stars, preparing for the challenges of colonizing other worlds, it's hard to imagine succeeding without a resurgence of these traditional virtues: resilience, strength, and courage. Moreover, masculinity need not be at odds with modernity. A mature man can embrace progress without surrendering his identity. He can balance emotional intelligence with stoicism, curiosity with responsibility, and creativity with discipline. In short, there's room for growth if men are willing to put down the Xbox controller and pick up the mantle of adulthood. So to the men of today, let's not linger forever in Neverland. The world needs you, not as superheroes or social media stars, but as builders, thinkers, and leaders. Masculinity isn't obsolete, it's essential. And as we venture into the unknown, whether the depths of the ocean or the vastness of space, the world will once again need men who dare to dream, act, and above all, grow the fuck up.